So, um, when you think about the future of flying cars, those sleek electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, or eVTOL.
Right, the real sci-fi stuff.
Exactly. When you picture those and massive high-tech mobility corridors, do you also think about multi-generational farming and, like, crop yields?
I mean, probably not.
Right. You picture glass, steel, lithium batteries, you definitely don't picture a family farm. But today we're doing a deep dive into how a massive industrial collapse in India actually birthed a blueprint that combines tomorrow's aerospace tech with well, a total rewrite of farmers' rights.
Yeah, it is a complete collision of two worlds that we usually keep strictly separated in our minds. Agrarian tradition on one side and absolute bleeding-edge aerospace technology on the other.
Yeah.
And the bridge between those two worlds comes from this really fascinating paper we have today by Dr. Ryan Badia. It's titled Development Without Dispossession, a New Policy Doctrine for West Bengal and India.
And the mission for our deep dive today is to really unpack that doctrine. Because to understand the future this paper proposes, we have to start with the disaster that forced the author to rethink everything in the first place, right?
Absolutely. The text roots this entire discussion in something called the Lesson of Singur in West Bengal.
Right. And Singur was, it was meant to be a triumph.
Oh, a massive one. It was a huge industrial project where Tata Motors was invited to build a factory, but it collapsed spectacularly.
Just a total breakdown.
Yeah, and it became this global symbol of lost opportunity. And the reason it collapsed is what the author defines as development by dispossession.
Because the state basically tried to acquire agricultural land using the old playbook.
Exactly. And trust completely broke down between the farmers, the industry, and the political forces. It just proved that the historical model of acquiring land for industry is, well, it's just fundamentally broken.
Right. And when we look at the mechanics of why it's broken, it really all comes down to how a government or a corporation actually values a farm.
Right. The actual valuation.
Because historically, they view agricultural land as just, a piece of physical property. They look at the dirt, check the local property registry, and assign a flat, current market price.
Yeah, just here is what this rectangle of dirt is worth today.
Exactly.
But Dr. Brigade points out that a fertile farm is not dead land. It's a recurring revenue-producing asset.
A business.
Yeah, a family business, one that supports livestock, local markets, community networks. For a farming family, that land is literally an insurance policy against inflation.
And a multi-generational inheritance, right?
Exactly. So when you force an acquisition and hand the farmer a one-time check based on today's dirt value, you aren't just taking a plot of land, you are permanently wiping out their food security, their social identity, and all their future earning potential.
Okay, let's unpack this with a modern finance analogy because I think it helps. Think about a software as a service company, or SaaS.
Okay, sure.
Investors don't value a SaaS company based on the physical laptop sitting in their office.
No, of course not.
They look at annual recurring revenue. They look at future earning capacity. And they assign a massive valuation multiple to it because that revenue is relatively predictable.
Right. The multiple is where the real value is.
Exactly. Well, think about a farm. A farm is the ultimate recurring revenue business.
Oh, that's a great point.
Right. The churn rate is basically zero because human beings will always need to eat. So if corporate revenue gets a valuation multiple, why on earth is a farmer's land treated differently?
It shouldn't be.
If a farm produces crop income year after year, that income deserves a multiple too.
And what's fascinating here is the author actually translates that exact logic into a tangible mathematical formula.
Okay, look at me.
They propose throwing out the old market price calculation entirely. The new proposed formula is this. Fair land value equals the market price plus the capitalized value of future agricultural income.
Right.
Plus a livelihood loss premium, plus a food security premium, plus a family inheritance premium.
Wait, stop right there. Let's not just rattle off a massive math equation without grounding it.
Yeah, fair enough.
If you're listening to this, that might just sound like a list of buzzwords. So let's make this tangible. Say I have, a 1-acre family farm in West Bengal. How does this actually work in practice?
Okay, so you have your 1 acre. The state doesn't just pay you what that acre would sell for today. First, they add the capitalized value of future agricultural income. Meaning they calculate what that acre would have earned you in crop sales over the next 20 to 30 years. And they pay you for that future potential.
Okay, that makes sense. And then you add a food security premium. What exactly does that cover?
It accounts for the macroeconomic shock to the community.
Like the local village.
Yeah. If your acre stops growing rice, The local village market loses that supply. Prices might go up, and the community has to import food from further away. The premium actually compensates for disrupting that localized food network.
Oh, well, okay. And the last one?
Then there's the family inheritance premium. That recognizes that you are going to pass this asset to your children. You're losing a generational wealth-building tool, so you must be compensated for the severed lineage of that asset.
Okay, so you were writing a massively larger check up front.
Massive.
But, and I mean, here's the thing, even a large lump sum of money runs out.
Yeah.
If a family has never had to manage a massive influx of liquid cash before, they can burn through it. And 10 years later, they have no farm and no money.
Exactly.
So handing over a single check, even a big one, still leaves them vulnerable in the long run.
Which is exactly why the text argues that a one-time payment is insufficient, no matter how large. The paper lays out a blueprint for voluntary market-based negotiation, and it requires long-term compensation structures. One of the primary mechanisms proposed is inflation-indexed annuities.
Hold on, let's explain that in plain English. You mean they get a yearly paycheck that automatically goes up as the cost of living goes up?
Precisely. So they don't get crushed by inflation a decade down the line. You replace the recurring revenue of the harvest with a recurring inflation-protected financial yield.
That's huge.
But it goes further than that. The framework also demands equity participation. The landowners actually get shares in the industrial park or the project being built on their former land.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Does giving a rural farmer shares in an experimental drone factory actually provides stability? I mean, if I'm an investor, I know the vast majority of tech startups fail.
Right.
Are we really helping farmers by tying their survival to high-risk corporate venture capital?
That is a crucial distinction to make. The paper usually advocates for equity in the infrastructure, not necessarily the volatile startup operating within it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so the farmers would hold shares in the industrial park itself or the vertiport real estate. That generates steady lease income regardless of which specific tech company is renting the space.
That makes way more sense.
Right. Plus, the framework mandates employment guarantees.
Yeah.
Not just vague PR promises of, we'll create jobs for the region.
Great, we've all heard those promises.
Exactly. This requires priority, hard contracted skill training for at least one eligible member of the affected family.
I also noticed the paper emphasizes leasing the land instead of permanently selling it.
Yes.
So the family keeps the ultimate ownership title.
Yeah.
And there's a strict return clause. If the company leases the land, but the project fails to start within a fixed period, or if they try to pivot and use it for speculative real estate, the land legally reverts back to the original owners.
It's the ultimate risk mitigation for the farmer. But interestingly, it's also risk mitigation for the corporation.
Wait, how so? Because if I'm a CEO, all these premiums, annuities, and equity shares sound incredibly expensive.
Yeah, and complicated.
They are expensive. But what costs the corporation infinitely more is unpredictability. Forced land acquisitions create immense political volatility. You get protests, lawsuits, endless delays, and eventually project cancellations.
Like Singur. Exactly what happened at Singur. The sunk cost of a canceled mega project is astronomical. When a company uses this new framework, they're buying moral and economic confidence. You guarantee the factory actually gets built because the local community is literally invested in its success.
Okay, that structural reality creates a massive pivot for the whole region. Because if a company has to pay all these multi-generational premiums, offer inflation-indexed annuities, give up equity, and train local families,
it adds up.
Yeah, that land is now astronomically expensive. You cannot justify building a low-margin traditional gas-powered car factory on it. The math simply doesn't work.
Not at all.
You have to build an industry with massive future upside. Which leads us to what Dr. Baidia actually wants to build there. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Right. The text pivots entirely away from traditional auto manufacturing. To justify this new ethical standard of development, West Bengal needs to leapfrog directly to advanced air mobility.
So electric vertical takeoff and landing platforms.
eVTOLs.
eVTOLs, heavy lift drones, the whole advanced aerospace ecosystem. But why this specific technology? Why is advanced air mobility the golden ticket for Eastern India?
It really comes down to India's unique infrastructure challenges. Think about how difficult it is to build traditional road networks in India.
Right?
You are dealing with regions that are heavily congested, prone to severe monsoon flooding, heavily forested, or intensely mountainous. Building a 6-lane highway through the Sundarbans or the Himalayas is agonizingly slow, environmentally disastrous, and insanely expensive.
Yeah, think about the last time you saw a major highway built in your own city. Even in a perfectly flat, highly developed area, it takes years of traffic jams, environmental reviews, budget overruns.
Absolutely.
Now imagine trying to lay 100 miles of continuous concrete through a floodplain.
It's just not practical, and that's the genius of eVTOLs and drones. They don't eliminate the need for infrastructure, but their physical footprint is radically smaller.
Because they fly over the problem.
Yeah. Exactly. You don't need 100 miles of concrete. You need vertiports, charging pads, maintenance hubs, and air traffic coordination software. It's a series of nodes rather than a continuous scar across the landscape.
And the use cases are incredibly compelling. We aren't just talking about flying taxis for rich tech executives in the city center.
Well, definitely not.
The paper specifically targets medical emergency transport, moving high-value cargo, and disaster response. It's about connecting difficult terrains like the Himalayan Gateway, Sikkim, and Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities that are currently isolated by geography.
It completely rewrites the logistics map. You can move critical medical supplies over a flooded river in minutes rather than driving 4 hours around it.
You know, it reminds me of that classic development analogy, how emerging nations completely skipped building massive continent-wide landline telephone networks.
Oh, right.
They didn't spend decades laying copper wire to every remote village. They just leapfrogged straight to cell towers.
Yes. That is exactly what the author is saying to West Bengal. Don't try to recreate the auto manufacturing booms of Gujarat or Tamil Nadu from 20 years ago.
Right. Don't play a game of catch-up that you've already lost.
Build the cell tower. Leapfrog straight to tomorrow's mobility.
Okay, so to build this sci-fi sounding future, you need a massive ecosystem. And the text actually maps out this Eastern India Advanced Mobility Corridor.
It does. It's a vast, interconnected geographic ecosystem designed to support this industry.
Let's walk through that map because the geography is really intentional. You start with Kolkata.
Right. Kolkata serves as the brain. It's the command, control, and software hub. Then you move to Durgapur and Asansol.
And what do?
They leverage their historical strengths to become the heavy manufacturing, battery, and engineering belt. And then Haldia provides the deepwater port logistics and supply chains.
And then there's Siliguri. The paper puts a massive emphasis on Siliguri as the critical gateway.
It's vital.
If you are listening to this and wondering why a city at the foothills of the Himalayas is so important, it's because of the chicken's neck.
Exactly.
It's this narrow strip of land connecting the main body of India to its northeastern states, as well as bordering Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh. It is a massive geopolitical and logistical choke point.
A huge choke point.
So if you can establish a heavy-lift drone hub in Siliguri, you instantly unlock trade and supply lines to the entire Northeast and the Himalayas.
Without having to blast new tunnels through mountains.
Exactly. It's a brilliantly strategic map. But to build an ecosystem of this magnitude, you need an anchor institution, someone with deep pockets, incredible patience, and diverse capabilities.
And the paper explicitly points to the Tata Group.
Which feels like a massive full circle moment, because the trauma of Singur started with Tata Motors leaving. But it's not just about historical redemption, is it?
No, not at all. It's a purely pragmatic recommendation based on Tata's unique corporate structure.
Okay, unpack that for us.
Well, it's not just about bringing Tata Motors back. To build an advanced air mobility corridor, you need an entire ecosystem of expertise. Tata has Tata Technologies and TCS to handle the immense software, AI, and simulation requirements of autonomous flight.
That makes sense.
You have Tata Power to build the charging grid infrastructure. And crucially, you have Tata Advanced Systems, which is already deeply integrated into aerospace manufacturing, drone technology, and lightweight carbon fiber materials.
So the state isn't going to Tata and saying, please come back and build a car factory. They're saying, come build the foundational operating system of Eastern India's air mobility networks.
Yes.
But for the state to manage a partnership of that scale, the government itself has to change how it operates.
That's a vital point. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the paper insists that to oversee this ethically, the state has to transition from acting like an owner of the citizens' land to acting as a trustee.
What's the practical difference there? I mean, if I'm the government, aren't I just in charge either way?
Well, an owner does whatever they want with the property. A trustee is legally and morally bound to manage an asset for the benefit of someone else.
The public.
The public. And as a trustee, the government must enforce a strict, unbreakable hierarchy of land use. To protect that food security we talked about earlier, Fertile, multi-crop, irrigated land has to be the absolute last resort for any industrialization.
The very last resort. So what's the first preference?
Degraded land, abandoned industrial sites, closed, bankrupt factories, unused government parcels. The state must exhaust every single one of those options first.
Right.
And even if a farmer voluntarily offers their highly fertile land, the state should require a public justification report proving that absolutely no alternative lower quality land was viable for the project.
Because once you pour concrete over top-tier farmland, you almost never get it back. Food security has to supersede speculative real estate. So what does this all mean? If we look back at the journey of this paper, we've gone from the trauma of forced land grabs to a futuristic mobility corridor where farmers hold equity in drone factories. The author actually distills this entire philosophy into 5 core principles.
They do, yeah.
Let's synthesize them. It really starts with the shift in power. Principle 1, consent before conversion.
Absolutely. No land use change can even begin without the voluntary agreement of the farmer, which naturally leads to the second principle, partnership before displacement. You aren't clearing people out as obstacles, you are bringing them in as shareholders.
Right. And to make them shareholders, you need the third principle, future income before one-time compensation.
Yeah.
You have to recognize that farm as a recurring revenue business with those annuities and equity we talked about.
Which protects the individual family. But to protect the nation, you need the fourth principle, food security before speculative industrialization. Protecting that fertile land hierarchy is non-negotiable.
And finally, if you are going to go through the immense cost and effort of doing all of this ethically, the output has to be worth it.
Right.
Which is the fifth principle, technology leapfrog before copycat industrialization.
Right.
You invest in the massive upside of the future rather than just copying the low-margin industries of the past.
When you combine those 5 principles, you get what Dr. Badia calls development as dignity. The old model pitted agriculture directly against industry. It was a war of attrition.
A zero-sum game.
Exactly. The new model brings them together into a unified economic engine.
And for you listening, whether you work in the tech sector, in corporate finance, or in local public policy, the underlying lesson here is incredibly powerful. Progress does not have to be a zero-sum game. Innovation doesn't require the vulnerable to lose out so the powerful can gain. We can build the future without destroying the foundation.
This raises an important question, though, because while the frameworks we've unpacked today were specifically designed for a rural agricultural context in India, the underlying logic of valuing community stability, future income, and multi-generational inheritance has much broader applications.
It really does. Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. We've spent this time exploring how to apply a future value compensation model to rural farmers. But what would happen if we applied that exact same logic to our major cities?
Oh, that's an interesting parallel.
Think about everyday urban renters, small business owners, and historic neighborhoods facing gentrification and displacement. If a neighborhood's culture, its community support network, and its local economic ecosystem had a quantifiable valuation multiple.
Just like a farm's food security premium.
Exactly. How would that completely rewrite modern city planning? If we can figure out a way to build flying cars without dispossessing farmers, surely we can figure out a way to build a new apartment high-rise without dispossessing a community.